Alrighty. Hey everybody. My camera is still acting up, so I'm just gonna do it without my face showing this week, but today's two topics are synergy and the queue. So yeah. So synergy and the queue. QUH has the best synergy, absolutely. So yeah, and then the other thing is we're just gonna go over one thing from last week that I didn't get through for some reason. So I'm just going to show a brief position from Quackle. We're going to be up actually 65. There's going to be 12 in the bag. And so we're going to play to get the bag under 7. And the reason for that is because if we get the bag under 7, our opponent can't bingo twice. And so we are playing through tiles to get to the end of the game, and this time it's correct, but it's correct for a very specific reason. And I want to show that there are times where it can be correct to play through tiles just to get to the end of the game, and this is going to be one of them. So hang on, not sure what's going on. There we go. Okay, yeah. So here we go. So we got this position here, and we're up 65 in it, and we have a couple of options, right? So we could just play E-dial for points, or E-lide. Could do like a fishing play. But the play I think is best is going to be this relied play, and the reason for that is because it scores enough that we should always be able to win, even if our opponent bingos. And it also plays through tiles and gets the bag to the point where it's under 7. And if the bag's under 7, your opponent can't bingo twice. And so if we do a sim with relied and then a couple of the better simming plays, we're going to notice that relied goes to the top pretty quickly. And so this is something you can watch out for. In this case, none of the 6 tile plays are good at equity at all. And so they're not going to be the first thing you think about, but we can see that relied has a strong equity, or a strong like sim value, because it gets the bag below 7. And I'm also pretty sure you win more than 83%, and that the sim is going to mess up at some point by having you make a play that empties the bag when you wouldn't, or having you make a play that doesn't block when you would block. So yeah. Okay. So next, we got synergy as our topic for the week. And so synergy measures the value of a leave relative to the value of the individual components of it. And so what that means is we are looking at basically how much the addition of a tile brings to our leave. We're not necessarily concerned with the value of the leave at this point. We're concerned at the relative value of it compared to something else. And the reason why we do this is because a lot of the time when we're making a play, we're considering 2 different plays, and the leaves might be 1 tile off. And what that means for us is that we're not necessarily concerned about the absolute values of those leaves. We're concerned about how good they are relative to each other. So if you're just going to keep an S, if the only difference is that we're keeping an S, the S is worth like 7 or 8 points, but if we're keeping it alongside another S, then it's only going to add like 2 or 3 points to your leave, and so that would mean that it has bad synergy. So, hey guys, thanks for coming, Tactic X and Quixotic N. In case you missed it, we're going to do synergy and the Q tonight, and so yeah, so synergy measures the value of a leaf relative to the individual components. So yeah, so we're looking at what the additional tile or tiles comparing two leaves to each other bring, rather than the absolute value of each tile. So a leaf like this has and it looks pretty, and so a lot of people make the mistake of saying that it has good synergy because we're adding like a bunch of good tiles together. But what you have to realize with a leaf like this is that ENRST is already very likely to bingo, which means the blank can only do so much to help it, and therefore that means it has very bad synergy. So if we couldn't bingo and we were considering getting rid of the blank, we might only have to score 10 or 15 extra points because we're already keeping such a good leave. The blank can only do so much to help it, so we don't necessarily even need the blank to bingo. And then this is a bit of an extreme example, but if you have a lot of bad tiles together, you're already very likely to exchange. And so the example that I'm going to show is basically we might as well just play QI for 44 on one turn that's coming up, because we're probably going to have to bingo, or we're probably going to have to exchange the next turn anyways, but since the average score we're going to get on a random rack is like 37, we might as well take the 44 in the certain exchange rather than the exchange and then an average of 37. So, hi, thank you for the raid, Josh. This looks like something you haven't considered enough. Yeah, and I think a lot of people mix it up. So yeah, there's like there's the value of your leave and there's the synergy. And so when we get a leave like that blank ENRST thing, it's not as good as it looks because leave values are going to sort of be capped at like maybe 30, 35, because it's going to be, Cesar. Don't worry. But so leave values are going to be capped at like 30 or 35 because the average score with bingo is going to be in the 70s. And so even if we're 100% to bingo, it's not amazing, but it's already good enough that the blank isn't going to help it that much. Like, you're not going to get 28 extra points out of keeping the blank with the NRST. And so what that means is that it has bad synergy. Yeah, I mean, it's not... You literally made Macondo because Quackle goes insane with that opening rack. Yeah, so... I wouldn't say Quackle goes insane. I would say that psychologically we have been like predisposed to not ever using a blank like that, and I think it's a rough habit that you're gonna have to break yourself out of. But when you dig into it, the fact is QI for 20, which I'm gonna show in a second, is gonna look like a good play because of the bad synergy in that leave. And a lot of people don't realize that a leave like blank ENRST has bad synergy because they see it as a bunch of good tiles, but it actually has awful synergy because the blank can't really do much to help an already good leave because you're already likely to bingo. And so we're gonna look at a position in Quackle real quick right now. And this is apparently why Macondo exists, which is interesting. But no matter the reason, I think it's a good thing Macondo exists. So we're gonna look at this opening rack, and it was by Cesar against somebody. If you happen to remember Cesar, please comment it. I think it would be interesting. Who was it? But yeah, so this happened in TWL, which means that we can't play QIN if we're gonna do the exact. But basically the like move that a lot of people in their mind is gonna default to is probably just gonna be to exchange the Q because they see it as and you can ignore this number. This is not realistic at all. Quackle gives weird numbers on the opening play. If you actually want to look at it, we can go to the Leaves Navigator, and we can see that. Yeah. Oh, we can't see 6 tile leaves. Never mind. You would exchange LQ. Yeah, that's another one worth considering. Although I mean, if you have ELNST blank, I believe you bingo unless you draw the X or the J, and even then you might get an 8, so it's not terrible. Exchanging LQ, you're more likely to get like a 4-point tile that helps you, but you're also slightly more likely to get like a complete like consonant blocked rack. Sook, you're making fun of me, I guess. But yeah, we can look at exchange LQ too if you want. It's I guess it has the same equity value, but again, these values are weird. They're not super realistic because you can't actually average like whatever that leave value implies you're going to average, which is something like 85 points, because if you exchange 1, your opponent's likely to exchange back, and so you're really only averaging like 70 points. Because if you exchange 1, your opponent's likely to exchange back. T is greater than N. It is. And so, yeah, and Alec has a good point. The blank burning play is Quest. So Quest is another option, and it scores 46. And Quest is one way of basically acknowledging the fact that blank ELNST has terrible synergy. Because with Quest, we're blowing up our rack for 46 points. And the reason why we're doing that is because we know that ELNST blank has terrible synergy. And so Quest is basically cashing out our equity for points. So then the other options are going to be QI, which looks a little bit weird, but the thing about QI is that it's very defensive because you can't do that much if you don't have an N or an S or an I. You're just going to be stuck putting like something here for like 15. And 15 is a lot less than the 35 you'd expect somebody to average. And yeah, you'll notice it's not actually that much worse equity-wise. And then since I do Collins, we can look at QIN as well, which is going to sim a little bit better because ELNST is a little bit consonant heavy. Yeah. Josh Face would hate that play. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We got to sim this too. Thank you, Alec. So yeah, the reason why I wouldn't trust these is because they make a weird, they do weird things trying to figure out based on position how good a play is. But yeah, thank you, Alec. We gotta check that one out too. So when we run the sim, we're gonna see the 22-point QIN is gonna sort of bubble to the top. At least right now, I've simmed it and it runs close with Quest. And basically what I'm trying to illustrate with this is that ENST blank and ELNST blank, although they look pretty, they have very, very bad synergy because the blank can only do so much to help. And so the relative value of the blank when we add it to the ELST is going to be less than 22 because exchange LQ is a 22-point sacrifice, right? Compared to QIN, and then the difference in the leaves is the blank, but QIN is simming way ahead of exchange LQ. And so we're seeing that the blank is not even worth 22 points here. So does everybody get that? Mo Allen, thank you for the follow. Add QAT? Sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's probably roughly the similar. I think the LT has better synergy than LN, which is why add Sook. I'm good, but yeah. Watch. So you said watch Will's vid about the Q. This is gonna I mean, I'm trying to go more in depth than that. He's like marketing to beginners. I'm marketing to he's marketing to like complete beginners. I'm marketing to like 1,000 to 1,900 or something. So I respect him for making it, but this is different. Oh, okay. You were trying to make a copy pasta. Yeah, no, I respect him for making that, but I would go for a different market than him. But yeah, so we can see, is Cesar still here to question his sanity? But yeah, no, so we can see that the very bad synergy of the blank ELNST leave is going to cause a play like QIN to become the standout play. And we can look at the details. So. Yeah, so I'm taking a peek at the details. I can probably show it. It's saying that on our next turn, we're going to average 77 points if we exchange the Q. But remember what I said a couple weeks ago? If you exchange one, your opponent's going to exchange one more often. So we're probably only averaging like 70 points if we exchange the Q on our first turn, and that's going to make our leave value only like 33. And the thing is, leave values are sort of capped in Scrabble because even if you bingo every turn, you're not going to average much more than, 70, 75. And so leave values are capped in both the positive and the negative. If there's more than 7 tiles in the bag, you can always exchange. And so your leave can never be worth less than minus 35, since 35 is the average score for a turn. So yeah. So I think this is a great position to talk about synergy and how what you see, is like not necessarily what you expect, because people see ELNST blank and they think it's really pretty, but I see it and I think it's just terrible synergy. So yeah, and then the next position, I was gonna show you. We're gonna pretend the word wink appears here, and then our rack is gonna be QIIIII, and so our options are going to be to either exchange or play QI, and basically I'm just trying to show you that leave values are capped negatively as well as positively. And so what I mean by that is that the III leave cannot be worse than approximately minus 35 to 37 because we can just exchange, and if we exchange we score 0 instead of 35 on average, and we get an average rack again, even if we have to exchange 7, or we get a better than average rack if we exchange less than 7. And so for that reason, if our choice is to score 44 rather than 0, we will absolutely choose the 44-point play. Yeah, you always play QI there. Good, you should. So yeah, So yeah, QI is simming as the clear favorite here. And I'm going to peek into the details, and it's telling me that if we play QI, we're going to average 2 points next turn. So we might not even have to exchange. You know, if we draw like an X, if we draw the X or the Z or something, we might even be able to get away with going longer without exchanging, which we might as well go for if we get something like that. So yeah, so that's another example of positive synergy. You see like 5 eyes compared to 4, but it's really not as bad as it looks because you can always just exchange on the next turn because leave values are capped. Quixotic N, can you talk about how this reasoning would apply to double blank situations? Yeah, so 2 blanks have terrible synergy because you're already likely to bingo with 1 blank, so you don't need the second one. And so if you want a really rough estimate, we can look at the leave navigator on cross tables. So I will shoot us over there for a second. So let's see. So here's cross tables. We can look up 1 blank, 27.9, right? And 2 blanks is worth 40.8 because the leaves are going to be capped at a low 40s because that would imply we're averaging like almost 80 a turn, which is about as good as it's going to get, right? So what this means is that 13 points, if you can't bingo, then the rough guess would be to use the extra blank for 13 points because you are already going to be pretty likely to bingo with 1 blank, so second blank isn't helping you that much, and what that means is that 2 blanks have terrible synergy. But again, a lot of people get this wrong, so I want to be clear. Like, 2 blanks are good, 2 blanks are better than 1. What negative synergy means is that 2 blanks are better apart rather than together. That's what negative synergy means. Positive synergy means better together, and negative synergy means better apart. So yeah. Any questions on the first part before we go on to the next part? Because there's only going to be a little bit more. Preach it, brother. Yeah, thank you, Josh. You're going to bed. Well, thanks for coming and thanks for rating me. You have a lot of negative synergy. That's too bad. Have a good rest of stream. Thank you very much, Josh. I appreciate it. You can always check it out on YouTube. I'll plug my YouTube just for some people to. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. We got 4 videos already. It looks like I got 3 subscribers. I'd love to get more. So yeah, that's my YouTube channel. Yeah, so we got Physics is Fun and WTF Jew have negative synergy. That's too bad. But yeah, so any other questions before we go on to the next part? I'm gonna talk a little bit more about synergy, but then we're gonna move on to the Q, which is the second part. So if you were both letters, what would they be? Probably something like the G and the V or something. Those are pretty clunky together. In fact, I didn't go over this. I didn't think to talk about this, but there's a concept in the English language called soft consonants and hard consonants. And soft consonants tend to appear first in diphthongs, like the N or the R. Like we think NG or RG, RT, things like that. And then the hard consonants will tend to appear second, like the G or the T or the B. And 2 hard consonants together, which the hardest ones are B, G, T, and V. Any 2 of those are really bad together, because they're never going to appear in diphthongs together. 2 soft consonants together is not nearly as bad. But yeah. So yeah. Alright, so we're gonna talk a little bit. Did I miss any? No. So some general synergy rules. Even if the tiles are kind of ugly, keeping a word on your rack is going to have pretty good synergy, right? So a leave like ABIOO is not going to be that bad because you can probably get a decent bailout by playing Bue. Then we can try the leave navigator. It's probably going to have negative synergy relative to the components, like it's minus 18.3. But if we look at AIOO, we're going to notice that the B isn't nearly as bad as what it should be. Like the B actually makes it better. And part of this is because I don't think enough games were played for us to realize. I think some of this was done by filling in the blanks. I think the B should make it significantly better because of the fact that buoy is a word. So yeah. Then a couple other general rules. You know, a lot of vowels or a lot of consonants is always going to have bad synergy because you don't want a lot of vowels or a lot of consonants. Duplicate tiles usually have negative synergy, and the only exception to that is the F. But again, one F is better than two. It's just that if you're going to draw both Fs, they're better together rather than apart. That's what synergy means. Keeping a lot of good tiles together is going to have negative synergy because your rat can only get so good, and keeping a lot of bad tiles together is going to have positive synergy because your rat can only get so bad. So, yeah, basically, the time we're going to use synergy is when we're considering two leaves. We're trying to consider how much basically the different tiles in those leaves, the tiles that are different between those leaves, are helping. So in the example I showed on Quackle with the blank E, so neutral synergy would mean that two tiles are worth the exact same together and apart. Like if you were going to get those two tiles, you wouldn't care if you were going to get them together or apart. So yeah. Gosh, I don't have an example. I don't know one that's exactly neutral. But yeah, that's basically what it means. And then in our example with blank ELNQST that I showed on Quackle, we got to see, like in person, we got to see, like in action, the concept of bad synergy, because we got to see that the blank added very little to our rack of ELNST relative to what it can add. And we got to see that a weird looking play, like using the blank for 22, is going to become the best play because the blank can only do so much on your already pretty nice rack. And so it's going to lose value because of negative synergy. So yeah, so that is synergy for today. And then the next topic today is just going to be the Q. So the Q is going to be the worst Scrabble tile because it's not in that many words. Then there's not many words with a Q without a U, which is pretty commonly known by speakers of the English language. You know, there's not a lot of words with a Q without a U. And so what this means is that because almost every word with a Q has a U in it, QU is going to be the most blatant example of good synergy in the entire game. Rather than minus 14.8 combined, if you just added up the individual components of the Q and the U, they're actually worth 2.8 together. So there's a positive synergy value of 17.6, which I believe is the biggest in the entire game. There's no way anything else is bigger. How much is the QU tile worth? Oh, this is not upwards. So I don't know what you're talking about. Or Boggle or whatever. But besides, Boggle the tiles doesn't matter because everybody gets the same tiles. So it doesn't matter what the tiles are, it matters you can see the words that come out. Whereas Scrabble, it's you get the tiles for yourself, so yeah. So yeah, and QU, like other high point tiles, is gonna be a very low variance combo. And we're gonna discuss that later, but low variance high point tile combos are going to be used as range balancers on a closed board. Similar to what we discussed last week when I closed the board down and kept the Z in that game against Dean. my range should have some QUs in there to balance. So Q without U is going to be so bad. If we have a blank, we can often just put down a 40-point play. The reason for that is because if we're sitting with like Q blank, it's not that good even though we have the blank. So we only need to score not that much to get rid of the Q. And that's enough points that's going to be better than, like 40 is enough points that'll be better than like exchanging and keeping the blank. So yeah. All right, so yeah, so now we're going to talk about low variance. So QU is low variance, and what that means is that we're usually going to be able to find a decent scoring play, like something on the board for 40-ish, but we're very rarely going to find like a really high scoring play because even with the U, the Q isn't in that many bingos. So QU is a low variance combo. On the other hand, keeping a leave like the S is a high variance combo because you're either going to fish on your next turn or you're going to bingo. So you might score 10 and you might score 70. So the Z and the X are also high point tiles. High point tiles are going to be low variance because you're never going to stray that far from the average 35-point play at Scrabble. So on a closed board, low variance combos are going to go up in value because you're still going to probably be able to find something decent to do with your QU or your Z or your X. And so those low variance, decent, high value combos are going to be good as range balancers if we're going to do a fake fish. And for those of you that didn't watch last week, basically, what is the covariance between Q and U? What does covariance mean? Is that like how often do they show up together in words? Nothing? Well, I mean, it means something. But yeah. So yeah. And so for those of you that didn't, watch last week, like a range balancer is basically, so basically if we made a play that looked like a fish, and it always was a fish based on what we had, like in that position we're always fishing, our opponent's going to keep the board closed. So if we occasionally keep something like Z or QU, we're creating a position where we want our opponent to close the board. And so that's what a range balancer is. QU is a good candidate for that because it plays well on a closed board. Oh yeah. So Q without U in the end game or the pre-end game. So we're gonna take a field trip to a website called BreakingTheGame.net. And this is Kenji Matsumoto's website. And so Kenji's a Scrabble player from Reno, and he has a degree in game theory, and he's really good at this sort of thing. So we're gonna go on the strategy page, and we're gonna find his when to pass. And this is a position that I want to talk about. So everyone, can we see this board clearly? Who is Kenji? Yeah, Kenji's just like a random schmuck, but it's got like a website, so but yeah. So yeah, can everyone see that? Awesome, that looks a lot better. So here, I guess I just have to say the unseen tile pool. So the unseen tile pool, I guess we can see it. Oh, I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay. So yeah. So here we got the unseen tile pool is AAE OQ RSWZ. And the issue here is going to be that if we draw the Q, our opponent is going to be able to block our only play of QI, which is right here. Assuming we don't draw the A, but since we're never gonna lose if we pass here, so I'm only looking at worst case. So let's say we put the word remover down, which is our bingo, which I think you can see, and it's gonna score 69, and so we would end up at 456 points, and that looks, yeah, it is nice, right? Like hot, nice. It's a good score in play, but the issue is, let's say we drew something like QOE or something. Maybe QOR is worse. So our opponent's gonna block QI, and then they're gonna be able to get some good scores down. Even you draw. Oh, we draw only 2. That's right. There's only 9. So yeah, let's say we drew QO. QO, we can only get the O down on the boards. We're going to score like 8 points. So our final score, yeah, so our opponent's going to block QI, and then they're probably going to play like EW right here, which is 29. And then they're going to play like AS for 30 here. And then they're going to play, well, if we give them the O, they could play like ZOA right here after they played AS. If not, they could play ZA. How blocks EW. Okay, so we play How, but our opponent can still get some good stuff down. Like they're gonna do removers, which is 26. Then they're gonna do ZA right here on remover, which is 37. So it's already 63. We're only up like 102 beforehand. So that's 63. We're getting 20 off of our opponent. So we only have to get 20 with the last 3 tiles. Or with our last 3 tiles, we're gonna score like 2 blocking QI. So and then we just have like a W and an R or something. In any case, if our opponent draws QR, which is the worst, I think, then I think I haven't looked through this position too much, but we could also play like Zia. Anyways, yeah, you don't see any. Well, once we play remover, we can play ZE off of remover. That's Collins only. So yeah, if our opponent drew QR, I think we'd be able to eke out a win. Although I haven't analyzed this position thoroughly, because then we can do EW, because our opponent would play ER for 4 probably. And then I don't know exactly what we would do, but we would block QI with one of our tiles. We would play ZA off of remover. We would play, or we would probably play ZE off of remover, and then Zia. So that's 49, and then as in removers, 14. What did you say? What percentage of Collins games have no Collins words? Almost 0. I don't think I've ever played one, and that's even when I was new to Collins and less likely to see them. So yeah, we would play ZE for 37 right here. So we would play if they play remover, we would play ZE for 37, and then Zia for 12, and then as in removers for 30. That's already 79. We only have to get a couple of points with the last few tiles to win. So we can win. The point of what I've been talking about is I'm basically trying to point out that if we're the player with remover on our rack, we actually can't play remover because it doesn't always win. But passing is going to always win here. And that seems a little counterintuitive, but it is going to work. And the reason why it's going to work is because our opponent cannot pass back because we're ahead. So if we're ahead and our opponent passes back, we win the 6-pass game that results from this, from remover. If they try to play off 1 tile or 2 tiles, they won't be able to get enough with 1 tile because there's not a good place to play 1 tile. Like that, another strategy our opponent would try. Like if we were up 1, it wouldn't work because our opponent could play off 1 tile and then try to 6-pass us because they'd be ahead. But they can't do that because they're down 29. So even if our opponent plays something like that, they're not going to win. They're going to play another tile off, and then they're going to have the Q, and we can stick them with the Q. Or we can just win an endgame if they have a Q and an A, and they can play QAID. But if they play QAID, we'll just have remover. And so passing actually is going to always win in this position. And I showed this position because this is a relatively common theme that comes up with the Q in the endgame or the pre-endgame. We're not actually that likely to... This is going to come up. Like, you'll see this at some point in your lifetime. So, yeah. It's a common theme. Kenji also showed this position, which is the less extreme version. But the point is the same. You should pass because you'll never lose if you pass. Honestly, this one you might be able to squeak by playing Mew no matter what, because your opponent can't bingo, but I think passing is probably better for spread. It's that you might win by like 1. You might be able to squeak by playing Mew here because it does score 40. And so you'd be on a 69-point lead. But yeah, I like this example better because it's more extreme, and it shows that even though we have a bingo playable, we got to pass. All right, so Kenji says that himself. He says, "It doesn't even matter if you have a bingo. You still need to pass in these sort of circumstances. The additional 50-point bonus won't save you from the consequences of playing a trap endgame with the Q. It's worth noting that if your opponent is passing in these circumstances, you will usually be better off on spread by passing back." Does that make sense to everybody? Because if we don't pass back, they're probably going to get remover down at some point, or we're going to get stuck with the Q. Right? It is an auto loss, but we're always going to lose if our opponent's willing to pass. They know that they're always going to win. So what's wrong with auto loss? Exactly. Well, we are saving spread. That's a good thing. So we do want an auto loss. So, Alec, you said this looks like a TWL NWL game. So Kenji deliberately makes his positions neutral so that it doesn't matter. You'll also notice that there aren't any like game-breaking hooks that like are way that make a Collins position way different. Not trying to win. Well, we can't win. If Kenji passes there, you should resign. Yeah. Well, no, actually, the end of the sentence says a particularly tricky opponent might start passing with the Q in hand, and the reason for that is because if we've gotten to the point game theory wise where we're willing to pass after a pass, we exploit that by adding the Q to our range. Does that make sense to everybody? So chime in. I want to make sure. I want to make sure we got this. But yeah, so I would probably since you could theoretically pass with the Q on your rack, I would recommend just playing it out. You're gonna lose, but you don't wanna lose to a tricky opponent. There's gonna be a game theory optimal way to do it. Yep, there's more balancing the range strategy here. It's very important in Scrabble because Scrabble's a game of incomplete information, unless you're in the end game. And so any incomplete information game is a game of ranges. So yeah. So that's one application of the queue. So we'll go back to my slides. Yeah, I think I talked about everything that matters there. So yeah. So the last topic is just general tips for the queue, but we talked about most of it already. So it's a slightly positive, low variance combo, and it generally has good synergy with additional vowels. And letters like the N or the T happen to show up a lot, like QIN and QAT will add value to the N and the T for your Q. Q without U is very bad, obviously. In the pre-endgame or the endgame, we're not going to be afraid to pass if we're slightly ahead and we want to make sure our opponent has an unplayable Q. Another application of passing is going to be in the endgame where any play we make sets up our opponent's Q. So if we're ahead, we can pass because our opponent can't 6-pass. And then if there's 8 to 10 tiles in the bag and you have an unplayable Q, it's a good idea to consider exchanging because it's your last chance to exchange. And the Q, if there's no U floating around, is definitely possibly going to be unplayable. So yeah, that's all I got for tonight. It's going to be a little on the short side, but that's okay. I just couldn't think of anything else to add. But does anybody have any suggestions for the next weeks? Yeah, this is all I got. So yeah, I mean I'm thinking maybe like a video about closed boards. That's what I'm gonna do if nobody gives me a better suggestion. Because I think closed boards play a lot differently than open boards, and I don't think a lot of people adjust well. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'll do. Closed boards be yeah okay. I think that's probably what I'm gonna do next week. Although I might not. You hate closed boards. Well, you shouldn't hate them. You should just use them as a tool. I might not stream next week because I'm getting my second COVID shot on Monday, so I might be sick. But we'll just have to see how I feel. So we'll see. I might have to push it to Wednesday or Thursday instead. I like doing the education stuff though. I think it's important, so I'm gonna keep trying to do something once a week. And then Thursday I'll try to do some more Ultra Blitz. And yeah, it'll be fun. So yeah, if nobody else has anything to say, I'm gonna sign out now. Yeah, thank you, Tactics. I enjoyed doing it, and then that's gonna go on YouTube, so it'll be like educational material forever. So yeah, end stream 30,000. I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, all right. I'm heading out. See everybody later. And yeah, have a nice night, everybody.